Welcome to Transforming Human Consciousness. I am Keyvan, Geula, and this program is sponsored by the Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of Claremont. Over 150 years ago, Baha'u'llah, the Prophet, founder of the Baha'i faith, proclaimed to the world that the gift of God to this enlightened age is the oneness of all humanity and the fundamental oneness of all religions. 150 years ago, and right now we look at our world, over 71 wars are going on throughout this planet. Almost all of them are instigated, affected by prejudice, either religious, racial, ethnic, one or the other. With my guest, Dr. Homa Mahmoodi, who is a clinical psychologist, we're going to explore some of these issues and similar issues from her perspective, from the Baha'i perspective. Welcome, Dr. Mahmoodi.
Thank you so much.
It's good to have you.
It's nice being here.
Let's talk about where you grew up. A country where women were actually not considered not only equal rights, but way, way in the back. How was it growing up in Iran as a girl, as a woman, and yet in a Baha'i family? How did it affect your life?
I think the fact that my father was a Baha'i and believed in the principles of Baha'i faith and Baha'u'llah really changed my life. I was born and raised in Iran. Basically at the time that throughout the world, basically at that time, women did not have much guidance as to becoming professional, for going for higher education, and specifically in Islamic countries and in places like Iran, this was pretty unheard of to expect your daughters to be raised as equal to your son and contribute something to humanity and be involved in a profession that helps humanity, which is one of the tenets of Baha'i faith. My father, only because of this belief, from the time that we were very young, he always instilled in us that we need to use our potential, our talents, in developing ourselves, in doing everything to the best of our ability to contribute to humanity. I have to also indicate that it's not that he did not value the issue of woman as a marriage partner and as a mother, but above and beyond that, the expectation was always that you need to develop your potentials and contribute something to humanity. I should say that as I have studied the field of psychology and women's studies, we note that the important factor in women becoming successful in life is really the belief of their father in them.
Not the mother?
Not the mother. Mm. And it's amazing that having like a mentor, but most importantly, as a young child, to have a father, a man that believes in you, really gives you that confidence within you that I can do it. I can be one of the people out there that can compete and work and contribute. And that is what makes you throughout the life, and especially professional life in this day and age. So it was really basically because he believed in Baha'u'llah and his principle.
So this was not a typical of Persian fathers to really encourage their daughters to go forward with education and with career in Iran?
Not really, not at all. In fact, even as when we came to the United States and I was in graduate school, the concept was you either become a doctor or you get married. I mean, the paths were kind of separate. It's just recently that women have the option of mixing the two. And if you study like physicians, women physicians of 30s and 40s, they were mostly old maids that became involved in those activities. So, but in Baha'i faith, it was a very nice package that you really could have it all. And you could maintain your femininity, your womanhood, your motherhood, your partnership in marriage, and also a career and develop your mind.
You practice psychology. You work at the Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles. You deal with very diverse population of people, of our backgrounds, of our beliefs. Does your belief impact how you practice and the success of your practice, what you do, how it works?
I think it absolutely does. I'm asked that question often. How could you be a religious person and practice psychology? I specifically feel that being a psychologist in Los Angeles, California, you need to have a large and all-encompassing belief system like Baha'i faith in order for you to be able to have a place for every person in humanity. We at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, we are very close to a high school that and an elementary school that we see clients from that they speak 132 different languages in that school. You really need to have a place in your heart for each one of these children, for each one of these families, to look at them as part of humanity, and the diversity of it be something that you can accept and deal with in order to help them. Whenever I teach the residents and interns, I talk about that as a therapist and as a physician, you really need to have that change of heart in order to deliver the service that is necessary, and in order to allow for that client to develop the self-confidence, the rapport that is necessary in this new culture, and provide them with a bridge between who they have been in their place of birth and the new culture that they are living in.
Do you, in your work, do you see that our children, our students, going through the educational system that we have? I know you work with multicultural issues a lot. Do you see that they get prepared for the task that they have? Do they come out of our educational system as more open-minded, more understanding of the fact that we are one human race, but yet we are diverse? Or really there is not much of a work done in that area?
I don't see as part of the education system that is done. I really feel that they're talking that in future, whatever our children are studying now, in 10 years, 15 years, they're going to change careers, they're going to change curriculum and work, that what they really need to have in order to gap some of these, in order to bridge some of these gaps, and in order to develop from inside, is to have some sense of wholeness, a center within themselves, and develop their self-confidence. And unfortunately, our education system really does not quite attend to that. Some of the new attempts have been helpful. We have a program on anger management, on respect for cultural diversity, for racial groups to come together and develop harmony. But if the belief is not inside of your head and inside of your heart, it becomes more of a social technical practice, yes.
When you say the belief is not in your heart, what do you mean by that?
By that I mean, it's interesting you say this, because I do a system of cognitive behavior therapy. And in cognitive behavior therapy, what happens is you are faced with a situation. For instance, you are faced with a situation to work with a racial group or a cultural group that is different from yours. And it's quite interesting. We had a team of Russian scientists and a team of American scientists that they were sitting together, and they were to develop a peace model. This is in the 80s. And they have written a book called Breakthrough. And I always think about it as a model that, as Baha'is, we have used a lot, and how you have to have a change of heart in order to change your mind. The Russians have certain words that we don't have in English. And the American scientist says that whenever they had a word or a concept that we didn't have in English, I would say in my heart or in my mind that it must have not been important, otherwise we would have thought about it. And if we had something that they didn't have, a concept, a word, or something about administration or committees, then I would say, you mean you don't have this? And underneath it was like, aren't you backwards? Aren't you not developed in this system? So I think that's the area that I like to work with groups, that what are the internal and inside voices that talks to us when we see people that can't speak English without an accent, that they come from a different culture, they have different skin colors. And in Baha'i communities, the challenge for us is to be able to transcend all of these and be able to work together and kind of quiet down and also become aware of those internal voices. That really is the essence of prejudice and essence of not being able to grow beyond certain stereotypes.
Well, this would bring us to a place where we can take a break, Homa, and then after the break, we'll come back and I would like to discuss this issue somewhat further with you. And for our audience, I would like for you to stay tuned, and we shall be back. Welcome back. We're going to continue our conversation with my guest, Dr. Homa Mahmoodi, who is a clinical psychologist and a member of the Baha'i community in Los Angeles, talking about some of the issues, exploring overall concept of oneness and looking at the context of race unity. And now I would like to talk to you about the women's issue, which also pertains to this whole concept of equality and oneness at the same time, but also differences. Is there confusion in regards of our role as women?
I think there is a great deal of confusion. And the confusion is a good confusion, you know, if you can label it as that. You know, being a Baha'i woman and believing in equality between women and men, we have been active in all sorts of groups and equal rights amendments and variety of women groups throughout at least last 25 years. I have been member of a variety of groups, as well as within Baha'i community we have had women groups, Women for International Peace and Arbitration, and we have had groups with United Nations and other things to promote women issues. You know, it's interesting to look back and see what we did as women, thinking that was equality. First, we tried to imitate men. We tried to dress like them, we tried to talk like them, we tried to think like them. Then we decided that the organizations were suffering, so we talked about feminization of organizations. Then we now are talking about Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, and a variety of other things that Deborah Tannen has written. And all of this, I think, is trying to, layer by layer, get to the issue of really how can we live together better? How can we have better families and marriages? If these two creatures or beings and poles are so different, how can we put them in a home, in an office, in an organization, and have them have some peace? I think the rate of our divorce has been very, very high because it's been
about
so
50%?
higher than 50% in California. But like for instance, the graduate school that I graduated from, we had 100% divorce amongst a group of psychologists, experts in marriage, and people that were supposed to help others with their marriages. So you say, what's going on, you know? And I think the confusion speaks for itself, and the fact that we are still struggling and trying to figure out how can we make this combination of men and women work. How could we have both of them develop, grow throughout their lives, and yet maintain the bond of marriage, the bond of family, and allow for each other's differences, each other's lack of development or advanced development, and have the tolerance. I think once we learn that, it's going to affect a lot of issues in society, and I think it would bring peace and harmony at the basic, at the first unit of society, which is the family. In Baha'i faith also, cross-cultural and cross-racial line marriages has been encouraged very much, and that adds to the challenge of it and difficulty in communication, expectation. It's always much easier to marry the person next door, or in the old days, from the same culture, same tribe, same religion. It's much more challenging, but yet much richer, much more exciting when you go way, way across the lines and marry and try to make life and understand a person of totally different culture, different racial background, different upbringing. And sometimes I look at it, as some of the divorces, as not really a loss. I look at it as a period of time that you really worked hard to understand another person, and maybe it didn't work out or it outgrew each other, but you made the attempt to make a jump in your life and deal with a challenge that was a difficult challenge, but like anything else, you probably learned a lot from it. I think as women, we are still having a great deal of difficulty juggling a career, motherhood, and a marriage. We want to try to do it all. The burnout rate, the depression rate amongst women is very high as a result. I think the newer generation don't have, I see the younger people in their 20s, they are much more in peace with themselves and with the issues, because they have had possibly mothers as role model that have had careers. They did not have to fight as hard. They don't have the anger edge and the competitive edge, and they don't have that line that is very thick between men and women. So I'm very hopeful, and I think we are adding to the confusion, but then we are also bringing in some solution that would be helpful in the future.
So, what do you see a difference in the way men and women treat one another in the Baha'i community versus overall, or is it the same? And if so, where does it come from?
I think what I see in the Baha'i community, and I have to say in some of the most sexist societies of the world, that the outside culture is very sexist, Middle Eastern culture, the Asian cultures. One of the areas that's very sexist is Australia and England. We find that within these cultures, the Baha'i communities, the women have a place, they have an administrative place, they have a role in the community, and the responsibilities are equal. So the attempt and the model of a Baha'i community seems to have worked for men and women to cooperate and to work together and push the community forward.
So it is really a process of not just belief, but educating the children from the childhood to this whole process.
It's that, and also the application of it, that they really try to work on the issues of education of women, helping women develop, assisting women in becoming self-sufficient and an active member of the community. You know, it's always interesting to go to cultures that women, for instance, had very low rate of literacy, and to see how in the Baha'i communities women are literate, and they are working on studying English or trying to learn something about new technology so they can be active and self-sufficient. And you know, a lot of Baha'i women throughout the world are helping other women. You know, 73% of women now in the world are left in villages with children, and men have gone to cities to work. And these women have no way of economic development or self-sufficiency, and Baha'i women have developed models to assist these women in the way that women are most comfortable in working, which is the cooperative model rather than the individual model. And World Bank has been helping, giving loans to some of these women to develop this model of cooperation and development. And it's a real interesting process to be involved with and see not only women in developed countries, but in the third world and other countries that they need the real help.
So once again, really working towards the actualization of the fact that we are one human family, one human race.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. As usual, our time is so limited and the subject so vast. For our audience, for transforming human consciousness, thank you for being with us. If there are any questions, any comments towards this program, please contact us. P.O. Box 686, Claremont, California 91711, and the phone number is 626-2569. Thank you for being with us.